Thanks, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming in and joining us today. What we're going to go through is this following agenda. Just a quick intro and scope of what we will and won't cover, why drop-off analysis is important to look at, what impacts your form abandonment, how to track it over time, a little tool that I use to help me manage and help my clients look at how their drop-off is going through, and some of the things that you can do to go through and do that. And then, as always, with coffee at the end of the session. So again, intro and scope. What we're going to go through and do is look at the Insights tab and do the drop-off analysis there. We're going to do a high-level review of the things that cause people to leave survey and form abandonment, how to track period over period results, and I'll go into that a little bit more detail, and then identify some of the things that you can do to reduce the drop-offs in your Typeforms. We've got some information and stats here. We've got some links to other sessions, webinars inside of the Typeform community that you can look at to find some more details from people who are much more intelligent about it than I am. But I'm going to give you what I can do and what we can do. And what it won't do in this workshop is tell you what to do to improve your survey completion. We'll give you some ideas on how to go through and approach it. We won't guarantee the results. We are not going to say that simply doing these things will improve what you're going to happen, but they can help. And if you are on a free or a basic plan, you'll need to be on the business plan to be able to go through and see these insights. So it'll give you an idea of what you can do and what you could do if you were up in that particular plan level where you can see these insights, and we'll work on that side of it. Okay, you need to be on that next bit. So tools I'm going to use are really simple. I'm going to use Typeform and Google Sheets. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I use to go through and track the details, and we'll walk through how I do that in a few minutes. Okay. Now, heavy click. Why is drop-off analysis important? So some of the rules of thumb that we see in the different types of Typeforms that we create, 30% will respond to research type surveys if they are targeted to existing clients, to a community, if you have some people. Roughly 15% will respond to a cold traffic quiz. They see an ad or you send out an email, you have no relationship with them. Cold traffic, they'll respond about 15% of the time. If you are using an email list and you are going through and sending information out to people who've opened in the last 30 days, you'll get about 40% response rate to quizzes and polls that you send out. It's actually quite high and a quite effective means to use quizzes to improve your throughput from your existing list. And if you've got a lead gen form or a quiz on your website, if you've got the right pieces in there, about 25% of people will respond to those lead gen quizzes. Now you got to keep them in the quiz. The averages are going to vary. In all honesty, how you get the information out there, what industry incentives and respondent relationships that you have. Okay, this is where we can't guarantee the results, but just to give you some more ideas on that part. And if you find your survey's got a high abandonment rate, you'll need to determine what you can do to improve it. That's not difficult, but you are going to have to put in a little bit of effort to do so. Now, what do we look at in terms of this research, and what are the things that actually go through and affect it? The drop-off rate reflects the respondent's experience. So does it look nice? Is it awkward? Is it ugly? Is it not enticing? What are those things that you have to go through and can do? It could mean that you have technical issues and it's hurting data quality. For example, if you are in a very remote part of a country where the internet connectivity is not the greatest, or you have squirrels eating through the casings on the internet cables running into your house like I had about a year ago, people are having technical issues getting access to the Typeforms. That can hurt the data quality and the drop-off rates. You can also go through if your Typeform is poorly designed. Are you asking for things from the client too early, from your respondent too early? If the first thing you ask for is an email address, you need to be entitled to do that. And one of the links that we have is to Professor Liz Stocco, who talks about entitlement and how to go through and get people to work on designing forms that will enable that within people. Losing people in a type form, okay, depending on the context of your form, people may want to drop out, okay? So if you're doing a survey research or you're doing more of a product assessment, again, if people are dropping out in that area and it's important to you, the context is a thing that may be driving people to leave. So if they're not certain what's in the form, why they're taking this, what you're going to do with it, the context as they go through may turn around and they may want to go through and drop off. Okay, so these are just some of the things that the research has shown us and things that we need to keep in mind when we're doing it. And if you're creating type forms for others, then on behalf of a client, if you're getting high drop-off rate, the client may be less likely to send people from their business over to your type form if there's a significant drop-off rate. If people aren't responding to something you've created for a client, then what can you do to go through and change that so that you're getting people to respond and the client's getting value out of what you're looking at? So it's similar. You could be doing it for another group inside your organization, et cetera. But you need to think of why people are dropping off and how they're going to go through. Okay. So what are the things that abandon it? Poor type form design or usability, okay? Technical errors, unpleasant color choices, confusing buttons. Okay. Poor user experience will drive people away from forms. Okay. The length of it. Okay. If you are doing a long survey, it shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes for a long research type survey. If you're doing a quiz, okay, to a personality quiz, you might have 10 questions. If you're doing lead gen, somewhere between 7 and 10 questions maximum, probably around 5 to go through and do the qualification that you need, get some demographic information, and you should be done. So you need to make certain there aren't too many based on the context, the business context of what you're going to go through and do. You may have complicated or repetitive questions. If they get the same thing and repeated same over, it can be frustrating. Haven't I already answered this type of question? So how do we look at all of these pieces? And if you're sending out surveys too close together all the time, all the way through, you may just get this whole scenario where people are just overwhelmed. They don't want to go through and they're getting fed up with answering all of these surveys. So keep in mind how many you're sending out, et cetera. One of my clients was sending out an NPS questionnaire at the time, every time somebody closed off one of the quizzes on their site. And they had 27 quizzes on their site. So if you went through and did those, you get 27 things all at once. So it's like, and then they would publish new ones next week. Very frequent. People were just stopped going to do them. So things to keep in mind. Okay. Now, I'm going to switch over for a moment and take a look at this, what I call the little technical interlude. And I want to go through and show you how a simple way to go through and track insights over time, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to go and flip over to this particular type form that I have in the that's available as a link through the community profile that I've got. And basically, this is a copy of a working survey or questionnaire that I have out there for the data quality space. It's one of the areas where part of my background, I look at how companies are dealing with data quality across industry sectors, et cetera. And so what I have is I have this quiz. It asks 9 questions. It's got some details about the data quality and then gets people to try and get a custom report based on what's here. Okay, but you can see it's, we're going to look at this front screen here. What's the greatest concern? Okay, what are we doing? Get started. I do have it set up to take a few minutes. So I've got that part in there. But what I want to do is say, let's go look at the results for a second. Now, while we scream across to the servers in Europe or California, depending on which way we're looking at it, what I can see over time that I've had a little over 1,000 views of this through the community, people in the community looking at it. And what you can see is that I have about 40% over time have dropped off at the welcome screen. Okay, why? And is that because it's like data quality and it's not a topic that people are really thinking about? It's just an example about doing this. And then I can look down at over time, I can see, how many people are dropping off, where they are dropping off in the form as they go through. So I want to keep track of this though, but because how much is it doing? If I make changes to this to keep people in the system, what can I do to see about the improvement? So what I've done is basically work off a form that looks like this. Now, let me make this just a little bit bigger for people to do. If I can get my mouse to cooperate, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that people can see. Hopefully that's better for everybody. But now you can see here are the questions that are in that form. And what I've done is said, okay, in September, what were the total views? What were the drop-offs? So I collected the stats for September. I've collected the stats for October. I haven't collected the November stats because I thought I would do that live in this particular session. And we'll just use the mid-December as a viewpoint. But what I've got is a summary table that allows me to see period over period. Remember that this shows me cumulative. Okay, so I can't really tell if I make a change today, what's the impact going to happen in the next month? But if I go through and I look at something like this where I can set a baseline, capture the details, and then go through and set it up to look at the next month, then I can make a change and I can see what might happen. So for me, simply, I have this little template set up, and this is the one for October. And I'm going to basically replicate this for November as we do this live. And then I'll walk through how I created it in here just for a second. So I'm going to go down to the end. All I'm going to do in this case, and this is where it gets to be really high tech. And this is as much high tech as I want to go through and do, is copy all this information, and I'm just going to paste it. Okay. Now, what I've done here is that I've actually gone through and set up a little formula inside the Google Sheet that basically transposes a range of data so that it puts it into a vertical perspective so that I can capture each of these questions and then the drop-off rates and the details onto this form. Okay, so that's just a simple way to get the data into a tabular format. And then over here, this should be going through and doing a lookup. If I've not gone through and set this up already, that's my problem. All right, so you'll notice here I'm using the array formula across to the October time, to the October piece. So I'm doing D2 to D. That's all I'm going to go through for November. So very simple. Array formula. Go over to November. I want D2. Now I've got it hidden at the moment, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to choose C. I'm going to change it to D. And for those of you who've not used the array formula, you need to give it the range. And now, oh, you're giving me a heartache. What am I missing in my? This is where the errors happen that you don't plan for in this space. And D2, what am I missing? Not expand because it would overwrite data in E2. I don't want that. Okay, sorry, let me rephrase D2 to D. Oh, sorry, D. There it is. There's my numbers. My apologies. And then that is G. So this is what we talk about doing things live. And when you practice this and you forget what you're going to try and go through. So I needed G. All right, so now I have my notes. So notice that if I'd set this up properly for you folks, and I do apologize, that I would have had this set up and it would actually just feed right in and you would have seen it automatically. But literally, it's just using the array formula to go over and look up which field I wanted to get. and pull the data in. So I wanted the views and I wanted the drop-off rate, okay, and the drop-off count, okay? At this point, I've parsed those out. So those are the two fields I wanted to bring in. Now what I can do is I can go through and I can say, okay, where am I looking period to period? So I have these two fields here, okay? I'm going to go through and highlight those. I've got a large drop-off that happens here. Where do I see significant other drop-offs? I see significant other drop-offs relative to the size of the form in this spot. So I've got 6 drop-offs there, 3, so forth. And I can go down and I look at this between the various pieces. Where am I seeing significant drop-offs as I go through? So what it says to me at this point is that I might want to take a look at changing something on this very first welcome page to see if I can go through and get an impact where the rate of drop-off, fewer people do that. Again, my form, if I go back here, is very simple. It has an ugly form. It's screen, doesn't tell people why, doesn't people what they're doing, etc. So this may be something I want to go through and change. Okay. Now the other side was people are critical and effective in data quality strategy. So that's one of the questions down here, and people are critical. And 3 short questions to answer. So this is where people are dropping off at the next one. They're getting to the statement page and they're dropping off. Okay, I'm not so concerned about this because this is a sample, but if it was production, I might want to look at changing it. Realistically, what this tells me is the biggest drop off that I have is at the front. That's where I need to go through and make some changes. Okay, but if I do this month by month by month, I can track these very simply to go through and set it up. So if I go through and set this up with a December tab down below to go through and create the December details, I can create the December columns, and then I can start to do this. And I've been doing this for a couple of clients where we have 18 months of data and we look at it period by period. We make some changes to the content, to the questions, publish it, and then we can see what happens in terms of improvements. Okay, so that's a really simple way that you can go through and you can do this type of check on what you're doing from the areas. Again, if you go back to the results, and why am I doing it again? Just to reinforce it, on the drop-off rates, it's a cumulative scenario that we can see as we're going through here. There's nothing that goes in the insights, in the summary, in the responses that tells us, that tells us where people are dropping off, why they're dropping off, etc., all of those things. So we really do need to go through and have some way of capturing this data and looking at it time over time. Hopefully that makes some sense in terms of looking at this, capturing snapshots, and then doing some analysis. Okay, so let's go back for a second and just do a quick pass through some of the other parts of the slide deck. I'll come back to the Typeform in a minute. And basically, what I wanted to cover off is just show you, I took the data from the Insights tab into the Google Sheets. So I just copied the entire piece, and then I used the array formula to go through and to parse it out so that I have the monthly data. And then I use my month tabs and a summary to bring everything in together. Very simple way to go through and do that. And then if I want to, I can check the impacts of a change that I've made. Okay, now I'm actually going to make a change to that form as we're going through in this particular session on that welcome screen. And then I'm going to go through and see what might happen between now and the end of January. And then I'll post a follow-up in the community to say, here's what I did and here's the changes, and we'll see what sort of drop-off rate happened because of that particular change. Hopefully, we'll see what happens, and I will have improved the way things work. Okay, so again, what are some of the improvements that you can make? Well, I can add an incentive to it. Get a free report, get a free consultation, be entered into a draw for a $100 Amazon gift card. That's an entire possibility that you can do to add an incentive, to this particular piece. And people are more likely to complete your survey if you reward them for their efforts. Okay. And it's a good reason to dedicate their time to answering your questions. Who wouldn't want to win a trip to Barcelona? Okay. Who wouldn't want to win a $100 Amazon gift card? You know, those types of areas. Work on your invitation is another part. You are inviting people to take this survey. You aren't necessarily, haven't been necessarily entitled to do so yet, but you're inviting them to do so. So you need to make a good first impression and convince them to answer your questions. So your invitation should be clear, well-designed. You know, why is it they're doing it and how their responses are going to be used. You don't have to put that on the welcome screen, but you can add that into a second page that says, hey, here's what we're going to go through and do. You can do that on your website if you're embedding a Typeform in your website. You know, we want your information. Here's what we're going to do, and it will help us design our, design the next generation of the product. Okay, and if you fill this in, you'll get a 10% off coupon, for the next purchase. So that may be a way of combining both your invitation and the incentive to do so. And then, how many questions? How long will it take? Embed the survey in the. If you're sending it out by email, put the first question of the survey in the email so that you can get them to go straight to it. Very simple way to get it started. So things to work on the invitation side. Okay, so just some simple pieces, and then revise the questions. Read them out loud to make certain they're clear and concise. Sometimes when you try to read the question to yourself looking in a mirror, you'd be surprised. They say that's good for public speaking, but it's also good for email writing and survey questions. Does it actually sound like it is clear? Does it sound concise? Am I going to make a funny face at myself in the mirror when I'm reading it, especially if it's complex or confusing? If the question is complex or confusing, they'll walk away from it. It's sort of like listening to the other 7 voices in my head have a conversation about which coffee should I have this morning. It can be complex, but we always manage to get it. In a survey, you don't want to do that. Optimize your formatting. Look for formatting errors, fonts, colors, technical problems that may cause trouble for your respondents. Make certain that your Typeform is optimized for both computer and mobile. That questionnaire, that survey that we were looking at of mine is not really designed for mobile very well. So I know that particular piece. I could make some changes to it. It's in here, the community as a demo, so I'm not going to say not bothering to do so, but it's not that important to me in the community to change this to go through and do that. If it was live and in production, I might want to go through and do that. Okay, now, before we wrap it up, let's go back over here and let's just go to this create form. And let's just do this little live piece that I said I would want to go through and change. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image on this, and I'm going to change it to this one simply because I'm in the community at this point. And I'm just basically going to say, please don't go. This is a demo of how to get a custom report. Okay, this is, again, designed for the community. Okay? It's let's see, fill this in for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card and get a customized report of your answers. Okay, my typing is going to that point. All right, so I've changed the image from that boring one to something that is maybe a little more geared to the community. Please don't go. This is a demo of how to get a custom report. And then I'm saying, here's my incentive. Fill it in for $100 Amazon gift card and get a customized report of your answers. And actually, I'm going to go through and do this. And at the end of January, when I post the update, I'm actually going to go through and do a draw. And I will give out a $100 Amazon gift card to anybody who responds to this particular survey between 12:30 Eastern time on the 14th of December and January 30th. Okay, Grace, you can You note that, Liz, note that down so that we've got that in. I'll go through and do that when I post the update to this particular site. So now I've made this change. I'm going to publish that so it's live. So now I have all of that going. I've made a change. So hopefully in a month and a half, 6 weeks, what I'm going to see is that the percentage of drop-offs between the November and the December should be fewer. I may get more people responding at the end. I'll wait and see what that does in the community. But that's really what I'm trying to go through and show you, that you make a change and we'll see what happens in terms of the drop-off at the beginning of this piece. So that's where I wanted to go through and show you a simple way to go through and do this. Look at some of the things that you need to do. And so in terms of wrapping it up, keep it simple, but view the results. Okay. This spreadsheet is actually really simple. Okay. I'll be happy to go through and provide a copy of this as an example into the follow-up post in the community, where you'll be able to see the replay of this. You'll be able to see this type of template so that you can get an idea as to how it was created. If it's of any use to you, please go ahead and do that. If you can actually use this and put it into place, then all I would ask is pay it forward, buy somebody you don't know a coffee the next time that you're in a coffee shop. It may it may work for you, okay? But keep it simple. This is not rocket science. All I'm doing is capturing the insights, pasting them into the piece, and then going through and pulling it across so I can look at month to month. Very simple in terms of way to do it. Whoops, I don't want that. My apologies. I need to go and click over here. All right. And you can make it as complex as you want if you want to do this. You can use Google Analytics to do a lot more analysis of what people are doing on your form, etc., in terms of abandonment going through. But you've got some details in Typeform if you don't want to mess with Google Analytics. Okay, you can use this little method. It's not difficult. It's not too bad to go through and do. Keep it simple. Basic analysis, though, is something that you can do in the Google Sheets, and it is something that you should do. Okay, and there are some really good nuggets about how you can frame questions, how you can go through and look at this concept of entitlement. When should you ask people for their email? When can you ask them to give you more details? With Elizabeth Stoko, Rand Fishkin has a great thing on lead generation and how to look at using quizzes to develop those pieces and some strategies of what you can include. Belini Slushy had a great webinar where they talked about creating questions, the types of questions that you can use and create inside your form. And they actually have a question bank that you can go look at, and you can work through some of the details that they have there. So go look at those webinars. You can find some more details, and they will help you go through and update and optimize your form. Like anything else, if you want to figure out success, you need to track it, but keep it simple. You don't have to do anything major. And that's really where we are at this point. And now, Grace and Liz, if there are any questions that people have to ask, I'm happy to go through and try to answer away on some of those.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Des, for going through all that with us. That was so helpful, and I love the fact that you saying just keep it simple. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here, but obviously it's important to keep track of these things. If anyone's got any questions, as Liz is saying, drop them in the Q&A section. We've got one here from Helmut, and they're asking, what is the difference between using the spreadsheet and just filtering the date and time to compare stats?
Filtering the date and time to compare stats. If you're talking in the results table, in that area, when you are going through and looking at the information, it depends on when you want to go through. You can go through and you can look at it from the last month. What are the dates in these areas? But it gives you just in the last month, and it doesn't necessarily tell you how you're doing period by period. So again, it's I've got to look at it from a time span. What do I want to go through and do? I want to go through, and if I want to go through, I want to take the go, can I choose from here? How far can I go through to the next month? I can go to September. I can pick a time span, a custom piece that I want and apply it. Sure, but it doesn't give me a side-by-side look. So that's why I tend to like looking at this in the sheet so that I can go through and I can say, okay, if I made a change in September, did it change in October? If I made a change in October, did it make a change in November? What are the changes in the period over time? Okay. Again, for me, it works this way. I find this is a much simpler way to validate the changes as it happens, rather than to simply just go through and rely on using the filter on the insights, if that makes any sense.
Nice. Hopefully that does make sense, but let us know if you want any more clarity around that, Helmut. Another question for you. Do you create graphs with the data from Google Sheets?
I create graphs all the time with stuff from Google Sheets. And in fact, there's a post in the community that I did about a month ago where I actually have managed to use Document Studio and Google Sheets to generate a graph, get it put into a template, a slides template, and send that particular piece out as a PDF file. Something I've been trying to do for over 2 years to make it work. And finally, between Document Studio and Google, we were able to go through and get that nut cracked. So there's another post in the community, and we can put that particular link in as one of the others potentially in the follow-up on the website as to where that one is, to show how the graphs are done. But yeah, using the Google Sheets to create the data for the graph, and then putting it into slides so that you can actually present that and send that out to folks.
I'll take this opportunity to drop in that Des is in the Typeform community daily, answering people's questions, but he does also he started doing like a weekly members tips post as well. So he's really sharing all his knowledge. So if you want to learn more, I definitely recommend joining the community if you haven't already done so. Another quick question for you, Des, or maybe not quick, that might be the wrong word to use. How can I optimize my form to be mobile friendly?
Okay, well, there are a whole bunch of help articles inside the Typeform help space. One of the simplest ways that you can do this in terms of optimizing it is using the preview on your form and saying, okay, let me put it into a mobile space. Okay, so now I can go through and I'm using mobile so I can see what this one looks like. Okay, what can I do? Now I've got the Powered by Typeform, and then the piece I can set that I could turn those settings off so I would have more space in here, optimizing it. One of the things that we're looking at is, now we have, this is it. I've got smaller text. If you want these things, you'll notice that it goes some scrolling over this. Apologies. And I can shorten it. Can I shorten the text down? What can I do to make this a little bit easier by eliminating and changing the settings so that I'm not showing the letters for selection or the numbers? I can give myself a little bit more real estate in the mobile site. So there's some things that you need to go through and to look at. The work that I do, I predominantly focus on the desktop, but in terms of looking at these, what are the question types? Matrix questions are not mobile friendly, just not. If you're going to want 5 columns and other pieces and with rows, it's just not friendly on mobile. So think of the question choices, but minimize the text, minimize these numbers. So if I go back over to the form and I go down here, who owns the data, and I can change this, and I can say turn off the I go in and I can turn off the progress bar. I can turn off the question number, the answers on the letters. I can give myself a little bit more space. If only these things would cooperate with me. Clicking on them quickly, turn off the Typeform branding navigation error. So now I've gone through and I've made some changes. You'll notice I've given myself a little bit more, real estate on there. When I view it, I've now optimized it. One of the things that we have to remember is that not all folks are going to have the same size of device. Mobile could be an iPad, it could be a phone. There is some level of responsiveness. There are still some things that I still think, and this is my humble opinion, and I think people in the community have stated, there's still some work that needs to be done in terms of optimizing Typeform for mobile. But again, you can see that I did give myself a little more real estate. It looks a little nicer here at this point. So things like this that you can do to optimize on that. Not really what I wanted to go through and spend a lot of time covering today, but you can do some things that'll make it a little bit easier to work with.
Awesome. Thanks, Des. Another question for you. What's your experience as to where to place the give me your details question? Is there a particular position in the set of questions where people are most likely to part with their email address, front, middle, or the end?
So Liz Stocco is where I try to tend to refer. She says, think of it from a question of entitlement. And this relates to the audience. If these are already customers of yours and you're sending out to them some details, or people who've come to your website, then you may be more entitled to ask them right up front for their email address. Okay, if it's a cold, if it's a cold outreach and you're getting people to come, cold traffic to this area, you need to entice them in, and at some point, you can say, look, we will give you this, we'll give you an incentive. Okay, you answer these questions, and if you want the output, then we'll ask you for some details. You can ask for a name up front. So rather than call you hey you through this quiz, please give me your name so that I can actually show that using @recall through here, so that, hey Grace, who owns the data in your organization? Okay, you can ask for that part. If people know the purpose of what you're doing up front, so for example, I changed this one now to get a customized report of your answers. Well, how are you going to get me a customized report? I'm setting an expectation in one sense that I'm going to be asking for them at some point for a method to give them the report. Not necessarily on an ending screen. I want to give them a report. Okay, I can show it on the screen as an ending. If you want to get it in an email, I'm going to ask you for that particular part. So there's there are a number of other webinars that we've done, in the community, and that Typeform has done with other folks, that talk about where to put these things in. And I usually find that it is closer to the end than at the beginning, because I need to earn that set of data from you. And that's where I look at it from that particular point. I want to capture that information, so I tend to use that at the end. If you like what you see and you want a copy of it for posterity, then give me your email and I'll send it to you.
Sounds good. Are there any more questions before we wrap things up? If you do have any final words or any other questions, then please do drop them in the Q&A, and we can take advantage of Des while we've got him live here. Ding, 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 ding.
This is where I will do the interpretive dance for you, Grace, Liz, so that you get it on screen this time.
That's all we wanted, yeah. Okay, I think that's probably it. Thank you for all the emojis there. We have really loved having you here again, Des. Thank you so much for taking us through this. Hopefully this was useful for everyone, and thank you to everyone that stuck around till the end. So we have a few things for you to do here. Des, do you want to walk this through? Do you want to walk
Oh,
me
I'll
through?
leave that to you. Grace, I'll
Ah,
leave that to you.
oh, thank you very much. So as we said, we have been recording this, so we will be sharing the recording with everybody via email, and you'll also be able to see it in the community as well. We will update the community post with the recording. If you haven't already joined the Typeform community, please do come over and chat to us. Tell us how you're using Typeform. Let us know if you've got questions. We want to hang out with you, so please come and hang out with us. And then we have a feedback survey. We would love to know what you thought of today's session. So feel free to fill that out. Liz has just dropped the link for that in the chat now. So please do tell us what you think and be honest. And then hopefully we will be able to share more workshops like this with you in the new year as well. So do stay tuned for those. And if you want to find out more about Des as well, we're going to drop the link to Des's website in the chat as well. So you can go over there and see what else he is up to. And if you're in the community, you can send him a DM and ask him some more questions there too. But I think that's it now, Des. I think we've covered everything right.
Seems about it. It looks like I have some coffee cups I need to wash here.
Well, I'll let you get on then. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it, and we hope to see you all again very soon. And also keep an eye on the post for Des's update in the new year on how those changes went that he made. And that's it. Thanks so much then, Des. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.